After my miscarriage, I couldn't get out of bed. My sister-in-law took my kids for the weekend. 2 months later, I still hadn't seen them. She told the school I was mentally unfit. "They're better off with us," she texted. My husband said nothing. I walked into court alone. Then I discovered what she'd told the judge. "I'm Clara. I'm 36 years old and I live in Clarksville, Tennessee. Or at least, I used to think this was home. I used to think my life was stable. I had a husband, Mark. 2 kids, Jonah, 10, and Ruth, 6. I thought we were a normal family. Not perfect, but not broken. Then I had a miscarriage. It was my 3rd pregnancy. I was around 13 weeks. It happened in the middle of the night. I woke up cramping, went to the bathroom, and there was blood. I screamed. I panicked. I called out for Mark, but he didn't hear me because he was out in the garage drinking with his buddy and blasting country music like always. By the time we got to the hospital, it was over. The nurse told me, "There's no heartbeat." I felt like I'd just been dropped into a hole. After that, I stopped functioning. I didn't care about food. I didn't care what I looked like. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I lay in bed for days. I cried sometimes, but mostly I didn't feel anything. Just numb. Mark kept saying things like, "You need to pull yourself together," but he didn't do anything to help. I was still trying to care for the kids, but I wasn't doing great. That's when Annie, Mark's sister, showed up. Annie's always been controlling. Always thought she was better than me. She walked into our house like she owned it, took one look around, and said, "You need help. Let me take the kids for the weekend." I didn't want to let them go, but I was exhausted. I hadn't slept in days. I nodded. "Just for the weekend," I said. "Bring them back Sunday." She smiled. Of course. They never came back. Sunday passed. Then Monday. I texted her, no reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. I asked Mark, and he just shrugged. "Let them stay a little longer. You need rest." Weeks went by. I kept asking. I kept getting shut down. Every time I brought it up, Mark told me I was making things worse. He said I was scaring the kids. But I hadn't even seen them. I didn't know what he was talking about. Then one night, I got a text from Annie. Just 7 words. "They're better off with us. Move on." I lost it. I called her. She didn't answer. I drove all the way to Franklin, where she lives. When I got there, I saw Jonah's backpack through the window. I banged on the door. She peeked through the blinds and called the cops. The police showed up and told me I had to leave. That Annie had temporary custody. That she said I was unstable. I didn't understand what was happening. The next day, I found out she had gone to the school, told them I had mental issues, and enrolled my kids in a different district. She gave them evidence. Pictures of our messy kitchen, of me lying in bed, looking rough. Mark must have taken them. I never saw him do it, but there's no other explanation. I demanded answers. Mark didn't argue. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're not well, Clara," he said, like that was the end of it. I couldn't breathe. I went to court by myself. I had no lawyer. I didn't even know where to start. I brought a folder with the kids' birth certificates, a note from my OBGYN saying I'd had a miscarriage and was under care for depression, and pictures of me with Jonah and Ruth from last Christmas. Annie showed up with a lawyer. Mark sat next to her. The judge looked right through me. Annie told the court I had a history of mental illness, that I was unfit and dangerous. She said I'd threatened to hurt myself, and that she was afraid for the children's safety. None of that was true. But Mark nodded along like it was. I couldn't speak. My voice cracked when I tried. The judge gave them temporary custody for 90 days. 90 days. They stole my kids and called it temporary. But I wasn't done. I wasn't broken. I left that courthouse shaking. I didn't cry until I got to my car. Then I screamed so hard I thought I'd pass out. I wasn't just sad, I was angry. Deep, burning, gut-twisting angry. They didn't just take my kids. They made me look like a monster. I knew I had to fight. But I also knew I couldn't do it alone. I needed help. So I got a lawyer. I scraped together what I could from my savings, what little I had left that Mark hadn't touched, and hired one. Her name was Dana. She was blunt, tough, and didn't sugarcoat anything. When I told her what happened, she stared at me and said, "They boxed you in. But we'll push back." She started digging. And it didn't take long to find out that Annie had lied under oath. She'd claimed I had a history of mental illness going back years. Dana requested my medical records and found nothing to back that up. Not one diagnosis, not even a hospital visit. The judge had taken Annie's word at face value. Then Dana looked into the school transfer. She found something odd. Annie had used Mark's name to authorize it, but the address she gave wasn't even her real home address. It was some rental property she used to use for her side business flipping houses. That meant the transfer wasn't even legal. Dana started building a case. But the next punch came out of nowhere. One night, I came home from work. I'd started doing part-time cleaning jobs again, and found my front door unlocked. My gut twisted. I walked inside, and nothing looked stolen, but my bedroom drawers had been pulled open. I checked everything. Gone, my journal. The one I kept after the miscarriage. I'd written everything in there. My pain, my anger, my dark thoughts. I never meant for anyone to read it. A few days later, it showed up in court filings. Annie had submitted it as evidence that I was mentally unstable. I was shaking when Dana showed me the scanned pages. She'd highlighted parts, out of context, and used them to make me look like I was suicidal. I don't want to wake up tomorrow. I hate that I'm still alive. I can't even look in the mirror. Yes, I wrote those things. But they weren't threats. They were grief. I was mourning. I asked Dana how she got it. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Your house wasn't broken into. This was someone with a key. Mark. I hadn't changed the locks. The man who once promised to protect me had used my pain as a weapon. He let his sister steal from me. And he helped her twist the knife. But we weren't done yet." Dana dug deeper. And that's when we found the biggest crack in their story yet. Annie had filed for temporary custody under emergency protection laws, which require proof that the children are in immediate danger. But there was no police report. No visit from Child Protective Services. No medical report showing harm. Nothing. She'd lied to the court. That's when Dana made her move. She filed a motion to overturn the temporary custody order. We requested a full mental health evaluation, one I agreed to take, and demanded that Annie be forced to prove her claims. It bought us some time. But then something happened that flipped everything upside down. I got a message from Jonah. A drawing, sent through one of those educational apps the school uses. Just a stick figure family. Mom, Jonah, Ruth. No Annie. No Mark. At the bottom, he wrote, "Miss you. Ruth cries at night. Come get us." That one message broke me. And it lit a fire in me like nothing else ever had. They thought I was weak because I was grieving. They thought they could push me down and I'd stay there. They had no idea I was just getting started. After that message from Jonah, I stopped sleeping. My body wouldn't let me rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured my babies crying at night in some house that wasn't home, with people who twisted my pain into lies. Dana filed an emergency petition to review the kids' welfare. She argued that we had new evidence. Annie's misuse of court documents, the illegally obtained journal, and now, proof the kids were in distress. But before the hearing date even arrived, we got hit from another angle. Mark filed for divorce. And he wasn't asking for half. He was asking for everything. Full custody, the house, and child support from me. He claimed I was refusing to engage with co-parenting responsibilities and that my mental decline made me financially unreliable. I sat in Dana's office staring at the papers. "He's trying to bury you," she said. "This isn't just about the kids anymore. This is personal." I asked her, "Why is he doing this? Why now?" She leaned back and said, "I don't think he's the one driving it. I think Annie's calling the shots." And then she showed me something that made my blood run cold. Dana had pulled bank records from the joint account I shared with Mark. A few months back, right after the miscarriage, large cash withdrawals started showing up. $500 here, $700 there. In total, over $5,000 gone. Most of it ended up in Annie's business account. We traced it. He was funneling money to her. Quietly. Behind my back. Then came the kicker, a picture. Dana found it through a social media search. Not on Facebook, Annie's too careful for that. It was on Instagram, posted by one of Annie's friends. It was taken at a lake house in Kentucky. There, in the background, plain as day, Annie. Sitting on a deck chair. Holding Ruth in her lap. Mark standing next to her. Holding her hand. They were smiling. Like a family. I thought I was going to throw up. I asked Dana, "Are they together?" Her answer was slow. "Careful. I can't prove it yet. But I think they're hiding something a lot bigger than a custody grab. I wasn't just betrayed. I was erased. I started going to therapy twice a week. I passed the mental health evaluation with no red flags. No disorders. No signs of delusion or instability. Just grief. Deep, normal, raw grief. I gave that report to the court. But Annie wasn't done. She started leaving anonymous voicemails on my phone. I knew it was her. I recognized the way she whispered when she wanted to sound innocent. The first one said, "You'll never get them back. They don't even ask about you anymore." The second one, "You should have stayed in bed." I brought the recordings to Dana. We submitted them to the court, too. The judge finally ordered an in-person evaluation of Annie's home. That was the break we needed. When the child services worker showed up, Annie flipped. She wouldn't let them in. She screamed at them. She told them they were harassing her. She locked herself in the house and called Mark. But the worker filed the report anyway, obstruction of investigation. 2 days later, Dana called me with a strange tone in her voice. "I got something," she said. "You're going to want to sit down." Turns out Annie has a sealed juvenile record from when she was 17. It never showed up before because it was out of state, Georgia. But Dana found it through a court clerk who owed her a favor. Annie had been arrested for assaulting her foster mother. She spent 2 months in juvenile detention. Therapy reports said she had narcissistic personality traits and violent tendencies. She'd hidden all of it. And now, she was raising my kids. Dana filed a motion to unseal the record. The hearing was set. And for the first time in 2 months, I had hope. But then something happened that almost ended everything. That night, I came home and found a dead cat on my porch. It wasn't mine. There was no note. Just the body. Cut open. I called the police. I told them who I thought did it. They wrote it up. Took photos. But didn't arrest anyone. No evidence connecting her, they said. But I knew. Annie had stopped pretending. This wasn't just a custody case. This was war. The day of the hearing, I wore black. Not to scare anyone. Just because I needed to feel solid. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Dana, gripping a copy of the child welfare report in one hand and Jonah's drawing in the other. Annie sat across from me in a cream blazer like she was walking into a brunch, not a custody hearing. Mark didn't look at me. He kept whispering to her like she was his wife. The judge came in. It started slow: formalities, evidence review, the therapist's evaluation. The judge asked me a few questions. I answered calmly, clearly. Then Dana stood and laid everything out. The sealed juvenile file. The dead cat incident. The voicemail threats. The illegal enrollment. The stolen journal. The money transfers. The court obstruction. The courtroom went silent. Annie's lawyer tried to argue, said it was all circumstantial. But the judge had had enough. He leaned forward and said, "Why were these children removed from their mother without state involvement? Why did no one call Child Protective Services? Why was the school misled?" Annie's voice cracked. She was unstable. She wasn't taking care of them. And you believe that gave you the right to remove them without authority? She's not fit to raise kids. Then Dana stood up with the printed photos, the lake house, the one with Mark holding Annie's hand. She laid them on the judge's bench. He stared at them. Said nothing for a long time. Then he asked Mark to stand. "Are you in a relationship with your sister-in-law?" Mark stuttered. We're close. "But, are you in a romantic or sexual relationship with her, Mr. Gibson?" His face turned red. It's complicated." That was all he said. The judge stared at him like he was dirt. He made his ruling that same day. Custody returned to me, full custody. Annie was barred from contact. Mark was given supervised visitation only, pending further investigation. An emergency protective order was filed against Annie. Her sealed juvenile record? Unsealed. She'd lied under oath to hide it. And the state opened an investigation into both of them for fraud and custodial interference. But it didn't stop there. I changed the locks. Filed for divorce. Sold the house. 6 weeks later, I was living in a small rental across town with Jonah and Ruth. First night there, Ruth climbed into bed next to me and whispered, "I missed you, Mama." I cried quietly so she wouldn't see. Mark tried to call. I blocked him. Annie? I heard she lost her realtor license. Too many complaints. She left Franklin. No one knows where she is now. No one really cares. But here's the truth, I made mistakes too. I checked out after the miscarriage. I didn't ask for help soon enough. I let my guard down. I trusted the wrong people. But I didn't let that be the end. I rose. I fought. And I won. They tried to take everything from me. But in the end, they only burned themselves. And now? I wake up every morning, make breakfast for my kids, and walk them to school. They laugh again. And so do I.